You think they suddenly started ignoring you. No, they didn't suddenly do anything. You just weren't paying attention when it started. Because people don't wake up one day and decide, let me ignore this person. That decision builds quietly, and by the time you feel it, it's already finished. That's why it feels confusing. That's why you replay conversations. That's why you keep asking yourself, what changed? Nothing changed in that moment. That moment was just the first time. You were forced to feel it. Psychologically, being ignored hits harder than being argued with, because it removes you completely from the interaction, and that only happens after something else is already gone. They stopped leaning in, stopped reacting, stopped feeling your presence. So when someone ignores you, you're not watching something begin. You're watching something that already ended. And here's what makes this worse. It didn't end in one big mistake. It ended in small things. You didn't even register. A response that felt slightly off. A joke that got silence. A shift so small, you ignored it yourself. That's the part no one tells you. Ignoring you isn't random, and it's not emotional. It means your position in their mind already dropped. It means at some point, you stopped feeling like someone they had to notice. And once that happens, even your best words land flat. In this video, we're not talking about why people ignore you. We're breaking down when it actually started. Because if you miss that, you'll keep trying to fix the wrong moment. You felt it. You just overruled it. That split-second drop, not silence, not disrespect, just something didn't land. And instead of stopping, you kept going. That's where it started. Here's the part people don't admit. You can tell when your words stop carrying weight. It's physical, not emotional. The rhythm breaks. The energy doesn't return. And instead of pulling back, you try to fix it inside the same moment. That's the mistake. Because the moment you try to recover lost impact, you confirm it's gone. Pay attention. You're explaining something. Halfway through, they nod. But it's early. Too early. They already understood enough to stop caring about the rest. And you keep explaining anyway. Now you're not adding value. You're stretching something they already decided was finished. That's the shift. Not rejection. Completion. They're done with you. Before you're done talking. That's what a micro-rejection actually is. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a quiet signal. You can stop now. And you didn't. Ignoring you doesn't start with silence. It starts the moment you keep going, after they've already checked out. Now it changes, because at this point, it's no longer about what you did in that moment. It's about what their brain does with you. After that moment, you're not being judged anymore. You're being filtered. The brain doesn't process everything. It can't. There's too much coming in. So it builds a filter. And anything that doesn't feel important, doesn't get full attention. Not rejected. Not argued. Just reduced. That's where you are now. Not disrespected. Deprioritized. And once that happens, you don't enter conversations the same way. You pass through them, partially heard, partially processed, mostly skipped. Robert Staunton Lind said it best. Knowledge is power only if man knows what facts not to bother with. That quote isn't abstract. That's literally what's happening to you. You became something their mind decided it doesn't need to bother with. And here's where this locks in. It's not about one moment anymore. It's a pattern. And patterns become decisions. So if you can already see where this started for you, not where it ended, but where it first dropped, then you're already ahead of almost everyone watching this. Because most people never catch this stage. They wait until they're fully ignored, then start panicking. Don't do that. Subscribe. Because if you don't understand what comes next, you won't just miss it again. You'll repeat it. This is where it stops being fixable in the moment. Because now, you're not being experienced anymore. You're being recognized. Not as a person, as a pattern. Your brain thinks you're still showing up fresh. You're not. They've already compressed you. And once the brain does that, it stops taking in new information and starts confirming what it already decided. That's the shift. Not attention. Interpretation. You say something sharp. It doesn't land as sharp. Why? Because it's coming from you. You go quiet. It doesn't create presence. Why? Because it's still you. Everything now gets bent to fit what they already think. He talks too much. She's always around. He tries too hard. Those aren't observations anymore. They're filters. And filters don't listen. They confirm. So even when you do something different, it doesn't register. It gets rewritten. You didn't lose their attention. You lost your ability to be seen outside of the label. And once that happens, there's nothing you can say in real time that changes it. This is the part most people miss. Once people label you, they stop listening to you. Not sometimes. Not depending on mood, structurally. Because once you become predictable, you become manageable. This is where most people completely misread the situation. They think, if I lost value, I'll get ignored completely. No, that would end it. This doesn't end. It stretches. You don't disappear. You get used. Your presence becomes something they engage with when it suits them, and ignore when it doesn't. And here's why this is worse than being ignored. Because it keeps you participating. You still get replies, still get moments, still get just enough to make you think you can recover this. You can't. Because those responses, they're not recognition, they're utility. You're being interacted with, not because of who you are, but because of when you're convenient. That's the shift. Not attention. Ownership of timing. Before, you decided when you show up. Now, they decide when you matter. And without realizing it, you start adjusting to that. Waiting. Timing yourself. Second-guessing when to speak. That's the consequence. You're no longer acting freely. You're acting in response. And once you're reacting to someone else's timing, you've already lost your position. Now understand this. What comes next is where most people try to fix it and make it permanent. If you miss that part, you don't just stay in this position. You lock yourself into it. You still think they're just not responding. That's already wrong. At this point, silence isn't a gap. It's a move. Because ignoring someone isn't neutral behavior. It's withholding communication. And when it's done repeatedly, it becomes a way to control how the other person reacts. That means this isn't confusion. This isn't them being unsure. This is them deciding, I'm not going to respond, and I know what that will do. Let that sit. Because now, silence is no longer about them. It's about what it does to you. Watch this carefully. You send something normal. No pressure. No emotion. They read it and do nothing. Not instantly. Not randomly. Precisely long enough for your mind to start working. Now you're checking, rereading, measuring your own words, like they're the problem. That delay, that's not absence. That's design. Because now, you're thinking about them, more than they're thinking about you. That's the shift. We only see what we want to see. We only hear what we want to hear. Don Miguel Ruiz. Listen to that again. We see what we want to see. We hear what we want to hear. Because that's not about perception. That's about decision. They already decided how to treat you. Now they're acting it out. Consistently. Deliberately. And silence becomes the cleanest tool. No explanation to defend. No words to be questioned. No accountability to carry. Just pressure. This is the line. Silence isn't absence. It's pressure applied without contact. Now answer this. Don't dodge it. Be honest. What did you do? The first time someone did this to you? Not what sounds strong. Not what you wish you did. What you actually did. Did you send something else? Did you soften your tone? Did you try to fix something? No one asked you to fix. If you're hesitating right now, that hesitation is your answer. And that's exactly how this works. This is where it stops being their move and becomes your pattern. Because everything up to this point could still be reversed. Here, you finalize it. The moment you react to that silence, you give it leverage. Not emotionally, structurally. You send another message. Now you've shown you're willing to move. When they don't, you explain yourself. Now you've shown you'll lower clarity to regain attention. You adjust your behavior. Now you've shown you're trainable. And that's all they needed. Because people don't decide based on what you say. They decide based on what you tolerate and repeat. So when they go silent, and you compensate, you don't fix the situation. You define your role in it. This is the part most people get completely wrong. They think, I reacted because I care. No, you reacted and showed them how to handle you. And once they see that, it's done. No more testing. No more guessing. No more adjusting on their side. Because now they know. You'll reach. You'll wait. You'll stay. Ignoring you didn't define your value. Your reaction did. And once that's clear, your position isn't being decided anymore. It's already set. If that felt a little too accurate, good. Like the video. Not to support anything, but because you've already lived this, and you know this isn't theory. And send this to someone who still thinks explaining themselves earns respect, because what comes next is where people try to recover and make it worse. This is where it gets dangerous, because nothing looks wrong anymore. No one is actively ignoring you. No one is avoiding you. No one is doing anything you can point at. And that's exactly the problem. You're still there, still speaking, still showing up, still part of the environment, but you don't move anything. You don't shift conversations. You don't interrupt momentum. You don't create reaction. You pass through it. That's different from being ignored. Being ignored is active. This is passive erasure. And psychologically, this is where people start feeling invisible. Not because they're removed, but because they no longer affect anything around them. That's the shift. You weren't pushed out. You were absorbed and neutralized. Watch it closely. You say something. No resistance. No engagement. No friction. It doesn't even get rejected. It just doesn't exist long enough to matter. That's when you know it's done. Because now, you're not being evaluated. You're not being managed. You're not even being handled. You've been placed somewhere worse. Background. And background doesn't get corrected. It gets accepted as permanent. Rejection is loud. Irrelevance is silent. Now stop thinking this is still unfolding. It's not. Nothing is progressing anymore. No signals left. No shifts left. No tension left. This is the outcome. Because people don't need to explain decisions. They just act like they've already made them. And silence, especially repeated silence, isn't confusion. It's distance being enforced without words. That's what you've been watching this whole time. Not hesitation. Not mixed signals. A decision you weren't included in. Perception is reality. If you are perceived to be something, you might as well be it. Steve Young. That's not motivational. That's final. Because once someone settles on who you are, they don't revisit it. They don't reevaluate it. They don't question it. They move accordingly. Less response. Less weight. Less presence. Not because they're still deciding. Because there's nothing left to decide. They're not deciding whether to ignore you. They already did. And here's the part that should hit you. If you're still trying to fix it at this stage, you're not early. You're late. Because this didn't end when they went silent. It ended long before that. You just felt it. After it was already over. So now you understand what actually happened. It was never random. It was never emotional chaos. It was patterned distance that you only noticed when it was already stable. And at this point, trying to force attention doesn't change anything. It only exposes you. You can't force attention, because attention was never the problem. But you can control what signals you send next, because that part never stops being yours. This is where most people get stuck. They keep chasing explanations for something that is already behavior, not mystery. Stoic rule here is simple. Observe patterns. Don't chase clarity. Adjust behavior. Don't demand answers. Because answers don't restore position. Behavior does. And once you see that clearly, you stop reacting to silence, like it's uncertainty. You read it as structure. When someone ignores you, they're not hiding their intentions. They're revealing your position. Now understand something important. This doesn't end here for most people. Because once you see this pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. And in the next video, we go deeper. Not just why it happens, but how people create the conditions for it without realizing it. Watch it. And don't stop halfway, because that's exactly how people lose control of how they're perceived, without ever noticing when it started. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not as a suggestion, but because if you miss what comes next, you'll keep repeating what you just learned to recognize.